Newsfirst, face to face with Charlene Benedict.
It's almost the end of 2023. We're looking forward to what 2024 holds for us. However, the announcements that are coming from the government towards the end of 2023 shows a little bit of a grim situation in 2024. Many experts as well as public representatives opine that 2024 is going to be a tough year for us Sri Lankans. Like we've not already had a tough year in 2023, but 2024 is going to be just a bit harder. Now, to discuss these matters and, of course, the political unfoldings that are due to take place in 2024, an election year, an important year, a year where Sri Lankans decide on their future. We've got with us the Legal Secretary of the Samagi Janabala Vegya, President's Council, Farman Cassim. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Charlene. Thank you for having me.
President's Council Cassim, now speaking of the political environment in Sri Lanka right now, there is a bit of a confusion as to who is really in power, because nobody seems to be wanting to take responsibility for these tax hikes. Now, understandably, certain level of tax hikes are required to pull Sri Lanka out of this mess that we're in. Also, simultaneously, action needs to be taken against those who brought Sri Lanka to this position in the first place, because it is because of them, make no mistake, it is because of them that you and I are paying all of these extra taxes, that you and I are suffering so much. So action needs to continue on that front. Action is not continuing. We will get into that a little bit later. But with regard to the tax hikes, even the SJB, I believe Dr. Harsha made a statement saying that these tax hikes are too much. There is a way where we can reduce it slightly and manage it. And a plan was presented by the opposition, of course, not something that usually happens in Sri Lanka, but even members of the government, mainly the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, doesn't seem to be wanting to take responsibility for this tax hike and say, look, it's we who increase the taxes. I'm speaking of a recent statement that was put out by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa saying that Ranil Wickremesinghe is in power. He has different policies than our policies. We are against the tax hike. What do you have to say to that?
First of all, we talk about Mahinda Rajapaksa's statement. I mean, it draws all kinds of hypocrisy, because you make that statement after you vote for the budget. Then, so his whole life has been a life of hypocrisy in politics, unfortunately. So this is the biggest hypocrisy, where he writes a letter, after voting for the budget and for the taxes. So what former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says and does cannot be taken seriously, because basically this proves that he is a hypocrite. And unlike us, the SJB, where we have put out our plans, certain plans as to how we can ease the burden on the people. We've given certain steps. We've given blueprint 1, blueprint 2 and blueprint 3 as we go along, where we have kept on amending our blueprint. I won't go into the nitty-gritties, but what I'm trying to say is and emphasize is that there has been no opposition like the SJB, who's been helping the government and showing the government the way that there is also an alternative way, without like the other parties, like leftist parties, trying to pull down the whole process and send us into a spiral of a further disaster. We've been giving constructive solutions, constructive proposals for the government to follow. But unfortunately, Ranil Wickremesinghe and Mahinda Rajapaksa and Dhammika Perera and whoever is in parliament don't seem to realize and understand the situation and cannot work together in coherent in power, which they are wielding. They wield a lot of power in parliament. They have 134 or 150 seats or whatever you call it. They have got the presidency, they got the prime minister, they got the best brains, they say. 7 brains was there, then Dhammika Perera. So, I mean, with all the tools at their disposal, they just don't seem to know what they are doing, and ultimately it's the people that suffer.
So, President's Council, Farman Cassim, if you look a little bit of the past, lessons of the past teach us a lot about how the future will unfold. Looking at the past elections in Sri Lanka, there has always been one main slogan that was the driving force of an election campaign, or the election in general. Every candidate centered their policies, their arguments, their speeches around this one slogan. Now, back in 2015, it was to end corruption, bring about good governance. Back in 2019, it was national security, a safe nation, one country, one law. That was the slogan. Now, what do you reckon the slogan for 2024 is going to be?
Well, if I tell you that now, Shalan, I think I'm beginning a lot of secrets of the SJB, wouldn't it? And that would be politically very disadvantageous. But I think, having said that, what the people are looking at is a leader and a party that has sensibility, has a good team around themselves, good people around themselves that can take us out of this mess and, you know, work for the next 5-10 years and project our economy in the positive way. So if you look at our history, you see the right or the UNP without Ranil Wickremesinghe has ruled this country for 30 years, up to 94, and thereafter with Ranil Wickremesinghe he has been 30 years in the opposition. So if you look at that is where the whole dichotomy of the whole thing, Ranil Wickremesinghe's leadership, you know, 30 years he's been holding on to the leadership, 30 years, it's only 30 years of governance of this whole of the country that the UMP has had. So we are the alternative now. I mean, we are the center, we are the center-right party, and after DS Dudley, Sir John, JR, and President Premadasa, it is us that is you know, is down that line and has the team and has the leader who can bring us out of this mess. I mean, I'm not just saying for the sake of saying, but it's proven facts. I mean, Ranil Wickremesinghe is a failure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Otherwise, he wouldn't lead a political party for 30 years without gaining power. I mean, so he's a proven failure. The SLPP bloc is also, I mean, proven failures beyond any doubt. The JVP, of course, is a reckoning force in the sense, like, you know, there's a lot of hype about them, but I mean, there are guys who haven't even run, any of them for a matter, has not done a job in their lives, nor run at least even a tea boutique to show that they can, you know, prove themselves in anything. They were given power in the Tissamarama or Tangal Pradesh Sabha back in 2001, and they lost the next election. You know, they didn't even get a single member there. So that shows they are utter failures. Also, they were given 4 cabinet portfolios in the 2005 government under President Chandrika Bandaranayakumartunga, I think, when they formed that coalition. They were utter failures. In fact, Vimal Veeravansa and all the crowd in the JVP were utter failures, and they reeked with corruption. I mean, today their members had so much of corruption and inefficiency. So I mean, when you look at our team, you know, it's like Sajid Premadasa, guys like Sujiva Senasinghe, Harsha Fernando, Harsha De Silva, Iran, Kabir Hashim, Bandulal, who are not in parliament even. You know, the team is really good. Guys like Ravi Samaravir, Sudit Pereira. I mean, we have a super team that can take this country forward.
So, Mr. Cassim, speaking about, you know, teams and the SJB being clean, recently during the Yuktiya operation, there was a member of the SJB who was arrested for the possession of drugs. What action has the SJB taken against him? So
we have suspended him forthwith, and we will be taking steps to sack him from the party. You have to do it in a proper way, as you know. You're a young budding lawyer. That there is always the rule of all the other parties. So you have to give him a chance to explain himself. Yes. And I don't want to comment that he will be found guilty because I'll be part of the process. So if he's found guilty, he'll be sacked from the party. And the thing there is, Shalin, our leader won't come to the rescue. Like he wouldn't, if he was caught in his house, he wouldn't take a helicopter and go and land there and try to save him or something like that, you know. Sajid Premadasa is not a person like that. Where we have seen in the past, you know, when there was a raid, for drug, where the president went and landed his helicopter there and saved this guy. So the SJB doesn't stand for that. Sajid Premadasa doesn't stand for that. Rajit Bandhumbandar doesn't stand for that, and the whole party doesn't stand for that. So that is where the difference is. You have to let the process go. I mean, any political party is not of angels. I mean, you don't get angels joining a party, or, you know, lily white joining a party. You get all sorts joining a party, but the test is, once you do something wrong, you have to pay the price. Like Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore, you know.
Right. So speaking of the rule of law in Sri Lanka, people have seemed to lose faith in law enforcement authorities because now as we know, for a country to have a proper rule of law, there are several stakeholders. It's not just the judiciary, but the judiciary will act based on the evidence that is presented by law enforcement authorities, the Attorney General's Department, and there have been many issues in this entire judicial process, including the other stakeholders as well. One of the main key issues is the fact that prosecutions are not taking place properly. There are always holes in cases that are supposedly, allegedly, intentionally put there by several prosecutors so that those who are suspects in these cases will, get a chance to go scot-free. So there have been many massive scams in Sri Lanka that have gone unaddressed, no justice whatsoever. The SLPP came into power promising justice for the Easter Sunday attack, for the central bank bond scam. Now those two issues are not even spoken of. It's almost like kryptonite against the government, even speaking of it. So what action is realistically possible against these issues? Because it's been so long, and as you know, evidence gets destroyed, evidence gets misplaced, officers are changed. There are a lot of practical issues. So realistically looking forward, what can be done? What kind of promise can the people expect to be kept by a government of the SJP?
See, making a sweeping statement that prosecutors, there are holes. I mean, we have very good prosecutors.
Definitely.
We have good investigators. It's just that they need to be given the confidence and they need to be given the power to do their job. I would say, if we say that there are certain holes in certain investigations and prosecutions, the ideal way would be to have an ombudsman who can go through these matters and see where they actually, because without research and without fact finding we can't come to conclusions. That's not fair on
Do you mean in the
So,
structure of an independent prosecutor's office?
Independent prosecutor's office is the final goal. If you can, like in Malaysia, if you can have an independent prosecutor's office apart from the Attorney General's
Department.
But until we do that, if we can have an ombudsman to say, if somebody says that, for example, you say that you're not happy with certain investigation, to go into the facts and see whether this investigation has been done properly,
right,
whether the prosecutor has done his job properly, and come to those findings. With regards to all these scams that have happened, even Ranil Wickremesinghe promised justice for the Easter attacks. In fact, he said he'll get the Scotland Yard down when he was in the opposition. But now, let alone Scotland Yard, he's travelled 14 countries in the world, all over the world. He could have got help from anywhere. He went to America. He went out to all over the world, right? And spending public money. And up to today, he hasn't said what he has gained. But he could have easily invited a foreign or independent investigation, which he did not do. What Sajith Premadasa has openly stated, and what the SJB stand is that we will definitely have an independent panel, probably a hybrid panel. That is what my suggestion was to the party, that we don't have an international panel, we don't have a local panel, but we have a hybrid panel, probably consisting of five investigators, 2 foreign investigators, and 3 from Sri Lanka, who was a chairman. So that then you have to have the buy-in of the community, international community, as well as the community in Sri Lanka. So there will be some buy-in, and that they will show some sort of independence that we can move forward with. With regards to the central bank bond scam, Sharon, unfortunately there is no scam at the moment, because all 3 cases were dismissed in the High Court. And everybody talks about a scam, throw it around very lightly, but in the eyes of the law, there seems to be no scam up to date.
There has been no scam.
There has been no scam, because nobody seems to understand exactly what the bond scam is, to understand how the interest, what a bond is, how the interest rates play. Because the Attorney General indicted
on some 14,000 charges or so.
Charges, and with regards to criminal breach of trust. But unfortunately, when you go into criminal breach of trust, buying a treasury bill is not criminal breach of trust. You are giving money, and how can you steal somebody else's money? So nobody was able to figure out what a treasury bond is and how it happens. Whether there was inside information, conflict of interest is a different matter. But at the moment, there doesn't seem to be a scam.
So we can't really refer to it as a central bank bond scam anymore, because there is no scam.
There is no scam, there is no indictment, there is no case in court.
There's nothing.
There is nothing.
So this whole rant and the election promise on bringing the bond scam thieves to justice, I think what was said by the current Prime Minister, no less, is that Mahadawale Mahabankuwa Kadua, That's what he said. Those are these exact words. But turns out that's not true.
It's not true at all. I mean, the SLPP, I mean, and that cohort of, that side have been always saying these things. No, these are very attractive to the people. Bank over Dawale, Kadua, like you go in and take money from the central bank. I mean, no. But the common man must be thinking that it is so. But that is not so. These are very intricate crimes, if at all. And it needs a lot of expertise, it needs a lot of legal reforms. See, this is a good opportunity, Sharon, for Sri Lanka to go in and see how the white collar criminals, if at all. I'm not saying that there was any criminality, but again, what I say, there has to be an investigation on how this exactly happened. Nobody has gone and had a forensic study to see how exactly a bond works, what exactly is a bond, how did this happen, are there enough sufficient laws. That's how other countries progress. We have to, without shouting from the rooftop saying it's a scam, we have to go in and see what exactly a bond is. What was this? What exactly happened? Do we have sufficient laws? And then create and legislate those laws to prevent these kind of things happening in the future, if at all something has happened.
Now, President's Counsel Farman Cassim, usually, again, looking at the past, things that happened in the past, when we come close to an election, we always see these communal issues cropping up. Now, I'm not saying that it is definitely going to happen next year, but I would place a substantial bet on the possibility that it could definitely happen next year, because that's what always happens. There are communal issues that are brought about. You get a few religious leaders from different communities coming out and making controversial statements. I believe there were statements made recently also, but no steps were taken. So with regard to that issue, how is the SJB planning on getting beyond that? Now, we haven't quite seen the SJB making those kind of statements or going down that path, but you can be rest assured that will be a featured conversation at the upcoming run-up to the election.
Well, it will be a featured conversation, not for us. It might be a featured conversation for the other parties. We have never been part and parcel of this anti-religious, anti-ethnic kind of slogans that go on. Our party is a multi-pluralistic, multicultural, whatever you call it. We accept everybody and anybody who believe in our ideologies. We don't want to go down that path and mention these things, because as our leader has always said, we are all Sri Lankans. If he becomes president, he'll be the president for all Sri Lankans. And he believes in one race, which is Sri Lankan. So that's his philosophy, and that's how we'll deal with it. But it's a very attractive slogan. It's a very attractive slogan. Being racial, being ethnic oriented is a very attractive slogan, which we only can hope and pray that Sri Lankans don't fall prey to again, because once you start wishing for something, it happens. Like the slogan "Kanna natat inna ratak," that actually happened. No? Kanna natat inna ratak. So we didn't have enough food to eat, but we have a country now. So when you wish for something, sometimes your prayers are answered. When 5 or 69 million people or whatever it is pray for something, you get it. So which we got. Kanna natat inna ratak, that was the slogan. No? So if we keep praying for something, that can happen. So if we go down this line again, that could happen. Also, I blame to a certain extent the media houses. If you look at the news in any mainstream media, out of the 30 minutes, you get about 20 minutes of voice cuts, and voice cuts are not news. I think.
But of course, when they're made by responsible authorities, and the content of those voice cuts impact the lives of everyone.
I think these voice cuts, if the media houses don't hold the mics in front of them, that they won't have a forum to give statements. If I'm a very radical kind of a guy, and everybody wants to, if I say something, for example, well, the majority like to hear, and when they are mic, I get an audience. So you see, if I had the choice, Sharon, I would tell the media houses have an ethics committee. You have half an hour news. You show 5 minutes of Sri Lankan news, in the sense actual Sri Lankan news. 5 minutes of foreign news, actually 5 minutes of business news, sports news, and get this voice cut thing out, because it doesn't serve the purpose of anybody except for rating.
well, I can assure you that Newsfirst keeps the highest ethical standards.
I'm not blaming any, but I'm saying in general, if you look at news, it's a dismal story that you see every day. Some murder somewhere, some rape somewhere, something going. Nothing positive about Sri Lankan business news. Nothing positive about Sri Lankan progressing somewhere.
Also depends on where you look.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So that also counts. It's not only the politicians, but everybody is to blame in this whole thing, even minutely. Yeah.
So moving forward, of course, next year is an election year. There are many election promises coming about. Now, since you are, of course, as the legal secretary of the SJB, you know the inner workings of the party. You're in the inner circle of the party. With regard to the program with the IMF, now Sri Lanka has set on a certain path. And what we usually see is that there is a government of green, then a government of blue comes around, they change the entire policy 180 degrees, then a government of green comes back, they change that policy once again 180 degrees. So it's a lot of pulling onto both sides and Sri Lanka not really moving anywhere. Now we find ourselves flat on the ground and trying to stand up. So with regard to changing this agreement or moving away from this agreement, at a time when Sri Lanka is awaiting, consent from our creditors on the restructuring program, is the SJB actively looking into changing these plans, or are you all planning on going about with it to a certain degree and maybe switching gears somewhere in the middle? What's the plan?
See, when this whole catastrophe happened, we were the first to come out and say go to the IMF. So going to the IMF is sine qua non. That has to happen. But see, you can always negotiate. You can negotiate, you can talk to them, and if the IMF and the donors, the Paris Club, China, India, all know that there is a genuine government, a genuine person involved, they can space out various conditions to us. We will definitely work with the IMF, we will definitely work with the Paris Club, we will definitely work with China and India, and we have to convince those stakeholders that a developed Sri Lanka is good for the whole world. If Sri Lanka goes down burning, it's bad for the whole world. If there is some sort of chaos, if there is some sort of civil war, it's bad for the whole region. So we need to convince India, China, the Paris Club, IMF, all that Sri Lanka needs to develop, and only if Sri Lanka develops, that the region can develop, and that there is going to be some good happening out of it. At the moment, our president, except for traveling with his cohort of friends and family or whoever, doesn't seem to be doing anything. I mean, has he come forward and said, I went to Dubai, I went to Cuba, I went, one or two other places. This is what we have gained from this trip of mine. See, we have to hold our leaders accountable. For even when Sajid Premdasa becomes the next president, if he leaves the country, thankfully he has not left for the last 4 years, like Anura Kumar Dissanayaka and Ranil Wickramasinghe and the others traveling the globe. Come and say, by going on this trip, this is what Sri Lanka gained in rupees and cents, or in bilateral relations. This is what we gain. We need to, I think, hold our leaders responsible, and that would be a good thing for Newsfirst also to say, ask Ranil Wickramasinghe, where you went on your last trip, so and so, what did Sri Lanka gain from this? That's a good thing, good practice to start. Ask the President's office, what did we gain from his tour to Dubai? This COP, to the whatever that he went for, climate change, what has Sri Lanka gained from this? In this year, no point talking about 2048. No, it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So, also speaking of, there are controversial discussions surrounding the 13th Amendment and devolution of power. Does the SJB have a definitive stand on these matters? How does the party plan on proceeding?
Yes. So, if I put it very bluntly, we are for a unitary state. That is a must. I mean, I don't think we can veer off that. But within that unitary state, we have to talk to the stakeholders in the north, and I don't think the east is the north, the DNA or the north, whoever represents the north, and the Tamil people. I mean, let's not tag it to a political party, and come to a certain understanding on how far we can go in devolution. 9 provinces for Sri Lanka doesn't make sense to me, to be very frank, as a administrative tool. Probably 2 or 3 maybe, where we can each province can compete against each other like in India. But we can't go the full hog like India or any other state. But I'm sure the Tamil people will be happy if they see some development coming in. See, we have to first show our genuinity, If we can help in the north with what is happening, what we help the south with also, then after 5 or 10 years they will buy in and say, look here, we don't need a separate provincial council for us, because we are getting whatever we had from the center. The whole complaint is that the whole complaint, apart from being the political complaint, the economic complaint is that we don't get what the South is getting. So once there is a genuine leader and a genuine party and working for the North, I think that call for a separate council with so much of powers will end. That's my personal opinion.
And does the SJB in any way plan on doing away with the provincial councils? Because there was certain stakeholders that made statements like that, not from the SJB but from other political parties. Does the SJB have a similar?
No. We have said we will abide by the constitution of the country. The constitution of the country has a 13th Amendment. The constitution of the country is being violated now by that being not implemented. But we will stick by the 13th Amendment. We will stick by the provincial councils. But we'll see how we can tweak it by getting into this understanding and see how far we can go with it. We will definitely stick by the provincial councils, no doubt about it. What I had earlier was what my personal opinion, how to get over this whole haggling of how much power, how much less power, what power do we need kind of thing.
So also moving forward next year, besides the presidential election, there is also a general election that is slated to be held. Do you think that election will also be held in 2024? There were members from your party who were calling for the presidential and the parliamentary election to be held together. However, that scenario is quite unlikely. Do you think the parliamentary election will also come about next year?
Well, that of course, I'm not a soothsayer, but well, the president can call for the parliamentary election anytime. Even today. Yeah. So after 2.5 years of the life of the parliament, he could have called parliamentary election. Even a presidential election, it's arguable whether he can call it or not. It has not been tested. My opinion would be the constitution is a living, breathing document, and he's the term where he can call it, the period that he can call the election of 4 years are brought in by an amendment by JR. It was 6 years initially, and then to bring it to call the election for 4 years was brought in by JR for his convenience. So it was brought in for a sitting president, but now this president is a nominated president, so whether he can call it or not is a bit of a controversy. But he doesn't have the mandate. Morally and ethically, he doesn't have the mandate. So the best thing for him to do would have been to call for an election. Nobody is going to challenge that. Nobody is going to say you're breaking the constitution. And it's also arguable. So, but my bet is that Ranil Wickremesinghe will wait till the last day of his presidency and see that it expires and then have the election. So the most sensible thing would have been to call the presidential election. And then with that momentum have the parliament, and then whoever can govern can govern. I mean, that's would be that's what would a person who loves the country would do. But I think our leaders are otherwise.
But whatever said or done, President's Council Farman Cassim, next year the general public will get an opportunity to choose their leaders. Sri Lanka has been having universal franchise for quite some time now. We've chosen certain leaders. There are leaders who've done good, there are leaders who've done bad, there are leaders who've done both. But at the end of the day, since the general public are the ones who are voting these leaders into power, the general public also does have a responsibility to vote the right people into power, because voting the wrong people into power, well, I think everybody has got a taste of what that would look like in the future. Sri Lanka, of course, will face a much more serious situation in the future if all of us don't vote for the right person next year. And we at Newsfirst will keep you abreast of the latest information. Make sure that whatever decision that you make is an informed decision, and it's up to you to make it. Thank you very much, President's Council Farman Cassim, for joining us on Face to Face this evening. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there once again for tuning into another episode. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, take care and God bless.
Thank you.